welcome back. As we earlier said, as we were assessing a thorough look over 2019, we could see an economically very definite, and to be able to take a more deeper look over the most important economic in particular achievements when it comes to that leap and the important steps that were taken by the Egyptian administration and the Egyptian government to be able to ease things down. We're very delighted to be having with us here Mr. Hany Abou el Fotouh, the economic expert. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, how do you evaluate the performance of the Egyptian economy in 2019?
Well, Egypt received year 2020 with a very positive and historic performance of the Egyptian economy. This was realized by the positive indicators shown and realized after the completion of the economic reform programs. Among the most important indicators is the positive and the continued improvement in the economic growth, which contributed to lowering the unemployment rate and achieving a historic growth in the economy, which stands now at 5.6%. The rise of the foreign exchange reserve, as well as the historic performance of tourism. So all these indicators altogether contribute to the well-being of the Egyptian economy, which now has been improving year over year.
As an expert, what were the most important economic achievements in 2019 from your own point of view, according to your own assessment?
Let me explain that there are several indicators, positive indicators, which were shown recently a positive result. For example, the continued improvement in the economic in the performance of the Egyptian economy, which contributes to lowering the unemployment rate, which it was 13.3% in the year 2013. Now it stands at 7.5%. In addition, the rise of the foreign exchange reserves, which were $13.4 billion in year 2012. Now the reserve stands at $45.3 billion, which is a very huge jump from that level. If you are speaking about the improvement in tourism, the tourism figures now stands at nearly $11.4 billion, which is the highest since year 2011, at the time of the revolution in year 2000, January 2011. There are other indicators like, for example, the inflation rate. The inflation rate is now 3.6% according to the campus statistics on inflation. And all these figures indeed contribute to the continuous improvement of the economy, and I see that the next year and the years to come will witness more improvement if the conditions remain stable, particularly in the surrounding area, among the unrest in the Middle East. This has to be a very good improvement indeed.
And what about the growth rate when it comes to the important leaps that were taken? Different stops were taken in growth rate. It didn't come at one time, but the growth rate have come a long way.
Yes, indeed. The growth rate, for example, it was 4.4% last fiscal year. Now we are speaking about 5.6%. It is expected to be 6.4% in the fiscal year 2021, and the 6.4% in the coming years. Indeed, the growth rate superseded the expectations of the World Bank and the IMF. the growth rate is Egypt achieved a growth rate which is the highest in the Middle East and North Africa. And this is actually a very positive sign that the Egyptian economy is continually improving and it is in the right track.
To what extent that has the growth rate become diverse and balanced when it comes to a full, a worldwide, globally assessment, economic assessment?
There is a misconception that the construction sector has contributed, or the main driver of the economic growth rate in Egypt. In fact, there are other several sectors which contributed significantly to that growth rate. I would recall that the services sector, for example, contributed to 47% of that growth rate, and subsequently the manufacturing sector, the construction, the tourism has jumped significantly year over year. So this diversity of performance, good performance of the economic sectors altogether contributed to achieve record results as far as the growth is concerned.
And the tourism sector, of course, when we talk about the tourism sector, we talk about it with pride, because as we see, the British travel ban was lifted, and the Russian travel ban was lifted, and I mean, all the types of European, Gulf, Japanese, Chinese tourism are flocking over to Egypt on different seasons, of course. And I guess this particular season is the peak for all types of tourists because of the nice weather and because of the Christmas vacation and all that. How do you assess the tourism sector and its impact over empowering the economic five?
Tourism, in fact, is a success story in Egypt because all through the 9 years, the tourism was almost on halt because of the circumstances in the region and the unfortunate incidents which happened with the tourism attacks in Red Sea. The tourism has risen to a record level this year, I mean the previous year, 2018 and 19, and the revenues recorded a historic achievement at $11.4 billion. This was a result of restructuring the tourism sectors and the several efforts made by the government to put the tourism on track. For example, one of the good signs, as you correctly mentioned, that the lifting the ban on the British tourism to come to Egypt was a very good sign, because this type of tourism are high spending. Similarly, we expect that the Russian tourism will be back again, and this is actually the backbone of most of the tourist activities in Egypt. And I expect that next year, with the opening of the Egyptian Museum in this year, 2020, this will attract more tourists to Egypt. So
this, in addition to other elements, also the inauguration of Al Alamein city also, and the conference tourism that have boomed in Egypt, and it's competing with Dubai, competing with the United States, competing with Europe, Central Europe, all that. These are all elements that have emerged in Egypt recently in the past 6 or 5 years that weren't there before, and have shared with a great bulk of income to the national income. If you would agree.
I cannot agree more, definitely. Let me add one thing here, that according to the Euromonitor index, which is a London-based survey, it ranked Egypt as one of the best touristic areas or destinations for visitors on its 100 list of most visited cities. By way of example, Hurghada ranked on the 82nd on the list. Cairo also was ranked on the 42nd on the list. So all these indices and surveys show that Egypt is becoming a good place, another good place for tourists to visit in this year and the coming years.
And how do you see the increase in foreign reserves?
The foreign reserves have achieved a very good jump since year 2012 until now. If I would mention some figures, that the reserves were lowest at $12 billion in year 2013. Now the level of the reserves reached around $45.3 billion. This is a very good jump, which is reflected is reflected by the investments, the foreign direct investments, which is worldwide is decreasing, but still Egypt is the first destination of the foreign direct investment in Africa. Similarly, the appetite of the foreign investors to invest in the Egyptian bonds and treasury bills still high. Egypt still one of the best markets that offer positive interest rates on the debts, on the treasury bills and bonds.
Right, and do you think that the investments, the foreign investments, have succeeded in boosting the foreign reserves?
Yes, indeed, and let me explain here that there are two streams of investments, and foreign investments, the FDI or the foreign direct investment, which is now Egypt stands as the first place in Africa according to the UNCTAD report, and also the investment in the Egyptian debt market, which is actually the bonds and bills. Although the bills, the treasury bills and bonds, the interest rates on bonds and treasury bills decreased by the central banks several times last year, but Egypt still pays very good interest rates on the debt market. So these have significantly contributed, and particularly we see that Egypt is among the best markets in the emerging markets which pay positive interest rates.
And the role played by the exports?
The exports also have shown good signs in Egypt. The level of exports stands at $21.3 billion, and actually this is a good result, and most of the exports of Egypt are in the form of garments and engineering products and agricultural crops. If we compare the figures of exports from previous year to this year, I mean year 2019, they have shown an increase of 2.3%, which means that yes, there are improvements in exports, yet maybe the expectations that we need to export more in the coming years.
Right. With Egypt chairing or assuming the chairmanship now for almost a year, now for a long time, of the African Union, the African market is widely open for Egyptian exports. So is that going to change in the map of export file when it comes to this particular event?
Egypt has a very important role in Africa, and being the chair of the African Union allows Egypt to be more open to the African markets. The African markets are very good recipients of several types of products and services. This is a golden opportunity for Egypt to penetrate the African markets with the goods and services that satisfy the needs of these markets.
The Globe organization in 2019 have stated that Egypt has an indicator of security and safety, a very strong indicator compared to other countries, of course. I mean, things have changed a lot. We were safe, but now we are widely recognized by the whole world as being safe. So how is that going to give a positive impression and an enforcement to the economic environment and foreign investors who were a little bit skeptical when it comes to injecting money inside Egypt?
Let me explain first what is Gallup Index. Gallup Index is an annual review or annual survey of the status of security and respect of or faith in the law enforcement. Egypt ranked 8th on that list in year 2019. In year 2018, Egypt stands at the 16th position on the list, which really outranked United States and United Kingdom, as well as many other European cities. This index asks basic questions, 4 basic questions about the sense of security and respect or faith in the law enforcement in a city. Like, do you feel safe when you walk in your neighborhood at night? Do you have faith in the enforcement of the law in your country? So the progress which Egypt has achieved for several years, for the second years in a row, is very good, positive index assigned that Egypt is a safe place. It has a direct reflection on tourism, because a tourist, when he or she decides to visit a country, they would look at the security and safety of that country. So definitely, as far as tourism is concerned, this is a very positive and good sign. As for the investment, yes, indeed, because the investors would look at a country that is safe, a country that the law is being respected, a country where the enforcement of the law is very well respected. So definitely this would be another good sign for investors to look at.
On that very positive note, Dr. Hany Abou el Fotouh, the economic expert and financial expert, would like to thank you very much coming over this morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
Wishing you a beautiful day. And I guess we're going to go to a short break and we'll come to resume the breakfast show, so stay with us.